fulfill their God-given potential. And I can't do that unless on Tuesday we decide what kind of country we want to be.
Tonight, singer Katy Perry will campaign with Clinton at a Get Out the Vote rally in Philadelphia. Katy Perry has been a strong surrogate for Hillary Clinton from the very beginning. And you talked about concerns about Pennsylvania. The Clinton team is investing a whole lot of resources there in the Keystone State, wanting to make sure there are no surprises on election night. Abby, Tucker, Clayton.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike. That is amazing.
You know, Donald Trump slamming Hillary Clinton last night at his event in Pennsylvania, Hershey, PA. He was in a huge packed arena, and he said, look, I don't need to bring Beyonce and Jay-Z out to my events.
It's true. If you've been to any of his rallies, I've covered some of them over this process. It's like going to a rock show. I mean, people wait out in line for hours just to hear him speak. It's unbelievable.
Well, the New York Times took note last night after this Beyonce announcement, and here's a quote from the New York Times saying the challenges facing Mrs. Clinton were clearly on display Friday when she took the stage and began making the case for her candidacy. Dozens of people began leaving the arena. The performance now over. Now, in her defense, it was late at night and the show was over.
But it's
also, why are they coming out? They want to hear Jay-Z and Beyonce perform. I mean, that's why they're there.
She's not making a real case. Vote for me because I'm a woman? Like, really? My daughters aren't impressed. Whatever. Okay, so we're learning a lot from this massive email dump of John Podesta, the chairman of the Hillary campaign's emails. And one of the things we just learned is that Hillary, remember, said she never forwarded classified information, never had any on that server, the unsecured one she kept in the bathroom. But it turns out she did, in fact, forward classified information to Chelsea. It wasn't about yoga or the wedding. It was classified.
That was her thing the whole time.
Right.
I deleted the emails that were personal to me.
Right.
Talking about my cooking recipes, my yoga classes, and Chelsea Clinton's wedding. But I think this speaks to the problem that people have had with Hillary Clinton for some time is I don't have to abide by the rules. I can do whatever I want. If I want to forward Chelsea Clinton a classified email about what's going on at the State Department, I can do that, and I can get away with that.
She's my daughter. But meanwhile, she didn't even email it to her daughter. Chelsea was using a pseudonym, which I found interesting, too. So she was using a fake name on this email server, which is interesting. So she wasn't just Chelsea at Clinton.
Well, she's rich and famous, and you're not. So maybe you could just be quiet and obey and stop asking questions.
You don't have a pseudonym email?
Well, you don't want to crack the glass ceiling, Clayton? Like, what's your problem, sexist?
Although you're going to the 7 p.m., I think it's time you get a pseudonym email address.
Right.
Totally.
I think it's time, Tucker.
My email address is terrifyingly public, which is fine. I don't care.
All right, we do have some other headlines to get to this morning, starting with a Fox News alert, and this is a sad one. An NYPD sergeant killed another officer wounded in a shootout in the Bronx. Gunfire erupting as the officers were responding to a home invasion. The suspect crashing his getaway car on a nearby street before shooting one of the officers at point-blank range. Sergeant Paul Tuazzolo later died of those wounds, and his partner was shot in the leg. He's expected to make a full recovery. To date, 53 officers have been shot and killed in the line of duty. And more political terrorism from the left. A Trump campaign office in Colorado attacked twice in just one day. First, vandals sprayed painting words like thief and pervert outside the Denver building. And then just hours later, a massive rock thrown through the front window. No one has been arrested. And you may remember a Trump campaign office was firebombed in North Carolina just a couple of weeks ago. Luckily, no one was hurt in that incident. And President Obama just shortened sentences for 72 more criminals. This latest batch of mostly drug offenders brings his already record-breaking number of commutations to nearly 1,000. He has now commuted the sentences of more prisoners than the past 11 presidents combined. Well, does John Kerry know something that we don't know? The Secretary of State announcing where he plans to go the day after the election, and it is far, far away. Kerry hoping to make headlines first thing on Wednesday morning with a visit to Antarctica, highlighting the decline in polar ice and its impact on sea levels there. Forecasters say Wednesday's high temperature in Antarctica, negative 27 degrees.
That's where you go after the election. I'm out of here. Go to the South Pole.
Whoa.
Well, Hillary Clinton says her economic plans will help all Americans.
I believe in growth from the middle out and the bottom up. When the middle class thrives, America thrives.
But our next guest says working people cannot afford a Clinton presidency.
Plus, forget the polls and forget the pundits. That won't be hard. We have instead a psychic monkey, and he knows who will win on Tuesday with 100% certainty.
I love that.
I can't believe I just said that.
Let's
see what's true. Coming up.
I believe in growth from the middle out and the bottom up. When the middle class thrives, America thrives.
In her final push, Hillary Clinton is making some big promises to the middle class, but our next guest says it's those very people who cannot afford a Clinton presidency.
Here to explain, our old friend, CrowdPack CEO and former Director of Strategy for British Prime Minister David Cameron, Steve Hilton, one of the few people who saw this coming a long time ago. Steve, it's great to see you this morning. So what do you mean by that? The middle class is less prepared for the consequences of a Clinton presidency?
Well, those people that she's talking about there, as I said, they're the ones that can least afford the kind of policies that we've seen, because they are the victims of the economic failure, not just of the last 8 years under Obama, but actually the previous 8 years under Bush. Because if you look at what's happened incomes in America, the bottom half of the income distribution, 50% of all Americans actually earn less today than in 1999, before Bush took office. And so to them, it really matters whether you see more of the same kind of economic stagnation that we've seen, or whether you actually get growth going faster and faster. Because if you're in the other half, if you're in the rich 50%, the top 50%, to be honest, it doesn't matter to you so much whether growth is 1% or 2% or 3% or whatever. You're going to be doing just fine. But actually, if you're living on the edge financially, if you're really struggling to pay the bills or to find a job, that kind of slow growth that we've seen under the policies that she's promising more of is something that you just can't afford.
So what you're saying is really it's a continuation of the Obama economic policies, which have kept wages stagnant, slow growth, very anemic growth. Is that right?
It's not actually just a continuation. In many ways, it's an acceleration in the wrong direction. It's more of the same and worse. Because if you look at her economic agenda, which really has been pushed to the left during the course of this election campaign, I guess to pick up some of those Bernie Sanders supporters, she's actually promising higher taxes, especially on business, and which is the engine of the economic growth that we want to see, more regulation, more of the things that have caused the incomes of so many Americans to fall.
What's so interesting, though, is that she hasn't really engaged, that I've seen, in a real debate on these economic questions. I mean, basically her response is, you're a sexist, you're a bigot, you're beneath engaging. But she hasn't made really an affirmative case for her economic policies.
That's right. It's basically just slogans. It's literally, like we just heard, that growth is from the middle out, the bottom up, whatever it is. But there's no real attempt to sell her policies.
Yes.
And that's why I think her campaign, amazingly, after 30, 40 years of basically campaigning to become president, in these last few days, her campaign is literally just insults and personal attacks, and no attempt to really set out the argument for why she'd be a good president, because there isn't really anything there other than slogans and the continuation of policies that everyone can see has failed.
You see the Trump economic policy. A lot of economists say that it's been swiped directly from the Ronald Reagan handbook. Do you see pro-growth among the middle class in Trump's plan?
I think his economic agenda is the main reason that anyone should support him, because it's pretty simple stuff, but it's actually exactly what America needs to get that engine of economic growth going. So lowering taxes, not just on individuals, but on business too, so that you get some of that money that's been heading overseas and sitting around doing nothing for the American economy, coming back here to create jobs and to provide the investment that we need, as well as more long-term things that help opportunity, like school choice and reducing the costs of healthcare. So if you add it all together, that's real practical help for those millions and millions of families that have been struggling. Now, it's no wonder that people can actually say, look, we don't care, frankly, whether he says things that are offensive or may have done things that are offensive. We need someone who's going to make a practical difference in our lives.
Steve Hilton, I don't know what time it is where you are, but you're nice to come and put that in perspective for us. Thank you very much.
Steve.
Good to see you.
All right, well, the question this morning, can Democrats blame James Comey for Hillary falling behind in the polls? Is that fair? Crystal Ball and Charles